Today, I spoke with the family of Breonna Taylor. This morning, they were informed that the Justice Department has charged 4 current and former Louisville Metro Police Department officers with federal crimes related to Ms. Taylor's death. Those alleged crimes include civil rights offenses, unlawful conspiracies, unconstitutional use of force, and obstruction offenses. The 4 defendants were charged through 2 separate indictments and 1 information. The federal charges announced today allege that members of the Place-Based Investigations Unit falsified the affidavit used to obtain the search warrant of Ms. Taylor's home, that this act violated federal civil rights laws, and that those violations resulted in Ms. Taylor's death. Specifically, we allege that Ms. Taylor's Fourth Amendment rights were violated when defendants Joshua Janes, Kyle Meany, and Kelly Goodlett sought a warrant to search Ms. Taylor's home knowing that the officers lacked probable cause for the search.
First here tonight, a Louisville Metro Corrections officer is fired after he records and posts a video with disparaging remarks about LMPD and Breonna Taylor. The jail's director and FOP president react quickly. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Doug Proffitt. The video shows Turhan Knight at the Kentucky State Fair in front of the Metro Police display at the fair. He appears to be making a parody of an LMPD recruiting video, but what he says quickly takes a turn to the shocking and inappropriate.
Answer the call. Be a part of a great, great police department. Never mind what happened to Breonna Taylor. We killed that. Do you want to be able to support your family? Do you want to kill people and be able to get off for it? Join Louisville Metro Police Department.
Well, the Louisville Metro Department of Corrections, the jail, was quick to respond to the video. They terminated Knight as of yesterday. Metro Corrections gave this statement saying, quote, "We are disgusted by Knight's actions, and the termination process began as soon as we confirmed the existence of the video." The FOP union for the jail has also responded in support of the termination. WHAS 11 photojournalist Ian Hardwitt spoke with their president tonight.
The way even the current officers still there feel like why would he do such a thing to, to even put the jail at risk? I mean, it could spark protests, it could, all kinds of things, and it's like this doesn't reflect the opinions or the views of anybody else that works there. And if that's the way you feel, you don't need to have a job with us.
Johnson also noted he contacted Knight and let him know his termination would not be appealed by the FOP and that Knight understood and agreed with the actions being taken.
2 years after Breonna Taylor was killed by police in Louisville, Kentucky, the U.S. Justice Department has filed federal charges against 4 police officers involved in her death. Officers fired more than 30 rounds into her apartment. Her case sparked national marches, protests, and calls for social and racial justice. Stephanie Sy has the latest development in the case.
Judy, this is the first time multiple officers have faced criminal charges for actions that Attorney General Merrick Garland said resulted in Breonna Taylor's death. 4 current and former officers, Joshua Janes, Brett Hankinson, Kelly Goodlett, and Kyle Meany, are facing federal indictments. Among the charges, the Attorney General alleges that officers submitted an affidavit for a search warrant that they knew was based on lies and then conspired to cover up what they allegedly did. The Department of Justice also said Hankinson used excessive force when he fired blindly into Taylor's apartment. Breonna Taylor's mom, Tamika Palmer, reacted to the news.
Brianna has taken us all to a place that we can't even imagine. Today's overdue, but it still hurts.
Breonna Taylor's mom has been counting the days for federal charges to be filed. Joining me now is Vice News correspondent Roberto Ferdman, who has been covering the investigation. Roberto, thank you so much for joining the News Hour. Breonna Taylor's mother never stopped fighting in the last 2 years for some accountability for her daughter's death. How far did these federal charges go in offering hope for her and others who feel that those officers felt they were above the law?
I would say that Tamika Palmer is by no means the only person in Louisville who feels like some semblance of justice is beginning to be served after the death of Breonna Taylor, her daughter. People in Louisville have been waiting for over 2 years now, and they feel like they've been failed at the city level, at the state level, certainly by the Kentucky Attorney General Office's investigation. For instance, Brett Hankison just a few months ago was acquitted on charges not that dissimilar from those that were just brought at the federal level. So I think that they view this as the start of some change, some justice.
As you mentioned, Brett Hankison was just acquitted a few months ago, and there was criticism that none of the officers ever faced homicide charges. The Kentucky Attorney General decided not to do that. These do seem like serious charges out of the Department of Justice, but are they enough to give some peace to Breonna Taylor's loved ones?
It's hard to say what exactly peace would mean, but I know that there were some Easter eggs in the presser earlier today by the Attorney General's office and the DOJ, where they made it clear that this is the first part of what's being released as a result of their now year-and-a-half-long investigation into the Louisville Metro Police Department. And that investigation includes not just a look into what happened that night, but also to broader practices by the police department. So I think that people are going to be paying very close attention to see what announcements come next, what charges are announced next.
As far as these four officers are concerned, I know at least a few of them have turned themselves in, been arrested, been booked. What happens next in this process?
So three of the officers have been arrested. One of them was not arrested. That's Kelly Hannah Goodlett. It's believed, it seems pretty clear, it's because she has already agreed to plead guilty and is potentially cooperating. What's next for them is a trial. The dates have been set for a few of them. The expectation is that Kelly Hannah Goodlett will plead guilty when her trial starts. For the others, it seems like they're prepared to plead not guilty. But their lawyers have basically not shared anything other than confirmation of their arrests, which we also know from the mugshots that have been released.
As you say, the Department of Justice is continuing a separate investigation into civil rights violations by the Louisville Metro Police Department. I know you and your team at Vice have also been looking into the department for the last 2 years. What have been some of your main takeaways about what's going on there?
So a few months ago in May, we released a 2-year-long investigation that was broken into 2 different parts. The first part focused on a pattern of sexual misconduct by police officers at the department and the department's failure to thoroughly investigate claims. This is part of what the DOJ is investigating, their internal affairs department. And then we also released a second part that focuses on a pattern of disappearing money and drugs from search warrants. This is a problem that is specific to the narcotics unit, and the DOJ is also investigating its practices around search warrants. So our hope is that the Department of Justice will uncover some of these things that we pointed out in our investigations. And our hope is also that as a result of this news today, more people, not just in Louisville, but elsewhere, will become privy to that. And it seems all too often, only through public disappointment, public outcry, do these things actually change, because not very much has changed locally in Louisville.
Just in the last 30 seconds we have here, Roberto, what would you say as far as the message that this sends? The fact that these charges against 4 officers, no less, federal indictments have come down. What message does it send to police departments that are dealing with their own cases of excessive force and questionable police practices?
I think that there's a broad understanding that police departments are not capable of regulating themselves. And there are examples of cities and states not doing it either. And I think the federal government here is coming in and saying that if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it.
Roberto Ferdman with Vice News, thank you so much for joining the News Hour and for your reporting.
Thank you for having me.
by yourself. This is our city. This is our town.
For months in Kentucky, residents outraged by the killing of Breonna Taylor campaigned for the police officers who shot her to face charges.
Commonwealth of Kentucky versus Brett Hankinson.
In September, a grand jury investigation indicted one officer for shooting into a neighbouring apartment and no one for killing Taylor.
Is that the decision of the grand jury? I will grant the motion and assign bond in the amount of $15,000 full cash and issue a warrant.
Is that it? Is that the only chocolate? What about the other? It can't be good. It can't be good.
No one has been held accountable. This is injustice, and this is the start clock for the next level of our protest.
What happened in the final minutes of Breonna Taylor's life? A full telling of that story has been impeded because none of the 7 police officers who raided her apartment used body cameras, a violation of police policy. But, with the recent release of thousands of documents and images collected during 3 investigations, the Times initiated a fresh examination of the case. We used crime scene photos to create a precise model of Taylor's apartment. We forensically mapped out and retraced the first bullet fired by Taylor's boyfriend and the 32 bullets that police shot in return, through windows, walls and ceilings. Using interviews officers gave to investigators, we charted their movements as they carried out the raid. And we analysed hours of 911 calls, grand jury proceedings, and footage by the SWAT team that arrived after the shooting. Members of the grand jury have accused Kentucky's Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, of shielding the officers involved from homicide charges.
Our investigation found that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in their use of force.
Boom, 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 boom.
Sergeant Mattingly may have been justified in returning fire when he's fired upon, but our new analysis paints a more complicated picture about how this raid was compromised from beginning to end. We'll outline the flawed intelligence and tactical mistakes of a hodgepodge team of officers, their failure to properly announce their presence at Taylor's, the chaos and excessive use of force that ensued.
Okay, there's another hole right below the clock.
And we'll explore the damning analysis of an experienced SWAT commander who was called to the scene after the shooting.
We just got the feeling that night that something really bad happened.
The focus of the police investigation on March 13th is not Taylor's apartment, but properties 10 miles away in West Louisville.
Louisville Metro Police! Hands behind your back, boss. We're executing a search warrant. Come out!
Where dozens of SWAT and police officers arrest an ex-boyfriend of Taylor's and his associates, and seize evidence including drugs. These officers are wearing their body cameras, and they carry out the raid safely and without incident. What the SWAT team doesn't know is that at this time, a hastily assembled team of narcotics officers is about to raid Taylor's home across town. They suspect her ex-boyfriend keeps cash or drugs there, but their intel is poor. They don't know she has a new boyfriend, and they think she lives alone. When 7 officers begin the raid at 12:40 a.m, they notice the lights are off, except for the flicker of a TV in a bedroom.
The light on the bedroom, the TV. I remember seeing it lit up blue, or when we pulled up.
Suggesting they know where Taylor is. In less than 3 minutes, she would be fatally shot. Inside, Taylor had dozed off while watching a movie with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. Adjacent is the bedroom of Taylor's sister, but she's not home. A hallway from the bedrooms leads to a living area, and the apartment's entrance is in this breezeway. The only light is this lamp opposite her door, where now the police begin to stack. In this reconstruction, we hear the official testimonies given by the 2 officers nearest the door, Mattingly and Nobles, Cosgrove, who's providing cover, and Hoover and Hankinson beside them. And we'll hear from neighbours and Kenneth Walker, who was interviewed by police right after the shooting.
When we all got up in line, I knocked on the door, banged on it.
Just as Mattingly begins to knock, a man emerges from the apartment directly above. He doesn't live there, but is picking up his child after finishing work.
The door right there, that's why the babysitter live. So I came to pick up my little girl.
A squabble with Detective Brett Hankinson ensues, and already the team seems on edge.
I remember Brett extending his gun saying, "Get back in your apartment, get back in your apartment." Brett was a little bit worked up. I remember looking at Brett saying, "Brett, relax. Brett, just relax, relax."
The man retreats inside. The police are supposed to be conducting a knock and announce raid, but that's not what Mattingly says happens at first.
We didn't announce the first couple because our intent was to give her plenty of time to come to the door.
Inside, Taylor wakes up.
So it's a loud bang at the door. She pops up out of her sleep. It scared her to death. Me too. Like, who is that?
Banged on the door, no response. Banged on it again, no response. At that point, we started announcing ourselves.
Whether the police announce themselves clearly enough is a critical issue in this story that we'll return to later on. Not knowing who's at the door this late, Walker grabs his licensed handgun.
Another knock at the door. She's like, who is it? Loud at the top of her lungs. No response. So I'm like, what the heck?
They rush to get dressed and walk toward the door.
We never even made it like mid-hallway. But as loud as we were screaming to say who it is, I know whoever would be on the other side of the door could hear us.
Outside, some of the police do hear Taylor.
I can hear somebody inside. I kept telling John, I can hear her.
But after knocking and waiting for around 45 seconds, they decided they've given her enough time to respond and rammed the door open.
The last time, I just said, let's just hit it. And that's when we did the, police search warrant.
We'll show here what the police and Walker describe seeing next.
And I hit it. After the third hit, it flew open. And that's when it hit the fan.
As we're coming to the door comes off the hinges like an explosion.
The officers now make a tactical mistake. Mattingly steps into the doorway and puts himself in what police describe as the fatal funnel, a position vulnerable to gunfire and hard to move from.
I could see down the hallway, and there's the male and a female, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, almost like they were together.
The apartment is lit only by the breezeway light that's coming from behind Mattingly and the faint glare of the TV in Taylor's bedroom.
You can't see anybody, though. It was dark. There was no lights.
Thinking it's an intruder, Walker aims low, shoots once, and hits Mattingly in the thigh.
I feel like I aimed down, because I don't need to kill anybody. So I just let off one shot.
Mattingly immediately returns fire.
I got 4 rounds off, and it was like boom, 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 boom.
Then all of a sudden there's a whole lot of shots.
Mattingly fires 2 more rounds when he falls and takes cover. Almost at the same time, Cosgrove moves in and fires, stepping on Mattingly in the process. He has now also put himself in the fatal funnel, and although he's shooting, he appears to have no idea what's happening.
I see blinding, vivid, white light and blackness at the same time. I don't hear any gunfire at all, ever. And I did not have any pain, sensation, or any recollection that I'm firing.
He continues shooting blindly until he runs out of ammunition, a total of 16 rounds.
If you told me I didn't fire a gun, I'd be like, okay, I believe you.
In response to Walker's shot, Mattingly and Cosgrove together fire 4 shots into a chair, cupboards, and a stove in the kitchen. 2 bullets go into the ceiling and pass through the living room in the apartment above, where the man, his 2-year-old daughter, and babysitter waited. 3 more shots go into the living room wall to the right. And the officers fire 13 rounds down the hallway where Taylor and Walker stood. Taylor is shot 6 times on both sides of her body, in the abdomen and chest, her arm and leg, and twice in her foot. In all, these 2 officers fired 22 rounds in less than a minute. An FBI ballistics report found that both of them shot Taylor, and that 1 of the 16 rounds Cosgrove fired was the lethal bullet.
We both dropped to the ground, but I just hear her screaming, and
Thinking they're under attack, some of the officers flee when they hear a pause in shooting.
There was a little bitty moment of no shots. I was like, here's the time to go, and then it all started up again.
We don't know the precise sequence of events, but Detective Hankinson runs to the front.
I can hear the firing as I'm making the corner. I can see the flashes, the muzzle flashes.
But the only ones shooting are police. Even though all the curtains are drawn, Hankinson blindly fires 5 bullets through the patio windows.
My only option was to return fire, and I did that to the muzzle flashes.
He moves and fires 5 more rounds through the bedroom window of Taylor's sister, who isn't home. 2 bullets fly over Walker and Taylor, but none hits them. The bullets that go into the living area pass over Taylor's sofa and kitchen table and smash her clock. 3 penetrate the wall and enter her neighbour's apartment. Those bullets also smash the kitchen table, hit a wall, and shatter the patio doors at the rear. A pregnant woman, her son and partner were home. Hankerson has been charged with wantonly endangering their lives. In total, the police fire 32 bullets, penetrating almost every room in Taylor's apartment. They hit saucepans, cereal boxes, and smash into her shower. They puncture shoes, shatter cleaning equipment, and land in her sister's clothing. And 3 minutes after police came to search her home, a fatally wounded Taylor is lying on the ground.
I'm just panicking and I'm telling somebody, I'm yelling help because she's right here bleeding and nobody's coming, and I'm just confused and scared, and I feel the same right now. That's it.
Months later, when Attorney General Daniel Cameron presented the charges against Hankerson and said that Mattingly and Cosgrove's actions were justified, he emphasised that police did properly announce themselves.
Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment.
But actually, the evidence is far from clear. In 911 calls immediately after the shooting, Taylor's neighbours don't know police are carrying out a raid.
Please get a police out here. They are shooting bad. Something's going on next door, and there's bullet holes all the way through the wall, through our glass. I have a 5-year-old in here, so something needs to be explained to me.
And in statements police took afterwards, none of Taylor's neighbours heard the officers announce. This apartment's patio door was open.
I mean, I was completely unaware that it was cops.
2 teenagers in this apartment heard a commotion, but didn't hear police announce through their open window, their mom said.
They told me that nothing was said, that they just beat on the door. I said, so y'all don't know if it was them? She was like, they didn't say nothing, they just beat on the door.
And the family who lived directly above Taylor also heard nothing.
Before the gunshots come out, did you hear anything?
Conversations or anything like that? People talking? No.
In their statements and in interviews with The Times, over a dozen neighbours say they did not hear the police. Attorney General Cameron's assertion rests on the accounts of police officers and a single witness, Aaron Sarpy, the man collecting his daughter that night and who saw the police when he came outside. In his first interview with investigators, Sarpy was asked what he heard when he went back inside.
Did you ever hear anyone identify themselves as police?
No, nobody identified themselves.
Months later, he told police his memory was foggy, but that he thought officers did announce. And beyond what the police said, this critical grand jury conclusion rested on his entirely inconsistent account. After the raid, the scene outside is chaos. Officers tend to Mattingly, but an ambulance that had been staging nearby is nowhere to be found.
The fuck is EMS? They're 2 minutes away. Somebody give me the radio with SWAT on it.
They radio the SWAT officers across town,
EMS on Springfield.
who are surprised by the call.
Where's Springfield? They're requesting armor down there. We're going to go ahead and take it. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
They head for Taylor's address.
It's an apartment.
I didn't know they were in that tonight. I knew it was part of the investigation.
As SWAT arrives, close to 40 police vehicles are already at the scene. Around this time, Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, is being arrested.
You've been hit by a bullet. That's unfortunate. Keep walking backwards. Hey, come on, we need to get moving because there might be a victim inside. Walk backwards! Keep walking backwards! You're scared, right? Walk back, I don't send this stuff! Walk back to me!
Walker had called 911 and neighbours had heard his pleas for help.
You're in a fucking prison, that's what's going on.
But at 1 a.m., almost 20 minutes after the shooting, the police still don't know Taylor is critically injured inside.
There's somebody in there dead? Yeah, my girlfriend, it's her house! We have to go in if there's somebody. Yeah. What is this about? My girlfriend is dead.
Keep walking!
As Walker is being led out, SWAT gets ready to secure the apartment.
Hey, there's a kid upstairs. He's not, it's a kid upstairs, little kid. What the? Hey, front door. Yeah, front door. Moving. Short. Clear.
Left side clear.
Go ahead and get EMS in here.
Check her pulse. Only now, half an hour after the raid began, does an EMT finally check Taylor.
Yeah, because there's a hole right there.
And later, as 2 officers stand guard, they take in the scene. They see Taylor's uniform. She worked as an emergency room technician in city hospitals. They note the bullet holes.
Body level.
Hey, can anybody advise if we talk to the neighbors directly above this apartment, there's gunshot holes in the ceiling.
Outside, the SWAT officers debrief on what they've seen.
Hey, camera's off there, Mike.
Yeah, mine's off. This is the fucking one that said that it is to do.
The SWAT commander who was called to Taylor's home after the raid was later interviewed by investigators.
We just got the feeling that night that something really bad happened.
Dale Massey, a 20-year police veteran, was highly critical of what unfolded. He said there was no coordination with SWAT.
We had no idea they were going to be at that apartment that night. I would have advised them 100% not to do it.
And that executing another warrant at the same time may have compromised Taylor's safety.
We treat safety very important, right? So like simultaneous warrants, bad business.
Narcotics officers testified that they didn't know Taylor had a new boyfriend, that her sister lived there, or that her 2-year-old goddaughter regularly stayed. Massey said the department had a history of poor intelligence gathering.
Back in the day, we would take a lot of detective information and take it as golden. Not anymore, because so often there's no kids, there's no dogs, we're told, there's kids and dogs. So we have an exhaustive recon process that we go through.
He said standing in the doorway, the fatal funnel, as Mattingly and Cosgrove had, was a tactical mistake.
Is it practical or is it even common for 3 people to be in what we consider the fatal funnel?
Absolutely not, no. You would never put, yourself in that situation.
And that there's a right way and a wrong way to conduct a raid. You knock, announce, and give people ample time to leave.
We're not going to rush in to get dope. We're not going to treat human life's more important than any amount of dope, right?
And just to be clear, no drugs were ever found at Taylor's. His harshest criticism was of Hankinson's blind shots into the apartment.
You have to know, A, what you're shooting at, B, what's in front of it, and B, what's behind it. There's no other way you can operate. It was just an egregious act.
Under Kentucky law, Kenneth Walker had a right to stand his ground against what he believed was an aggressor, and the police in turn have a right to self-defense. But in this analysis, the killing of Breonna Taylor resulted from poor planning compounded by reckless execution. Louisville has instituted police reforms, and Taylor's family received a substantial settlement, but the case isn't closed. Investigations and lawsuits are ongoing, and 9 months after Taylor was killed, her family is seeking a fresh inquiry into the officers involved.
Once again, this is 50 years of celebrating African American history, the African American Day Parade.